You need to, yeah, okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We need to start our last panel. I do understand that it's the single slot which separates us from dinner and from glass of some refreshment, evening refreshment. Nevertheless, for those who are the most enduring, here to stay, let's speak about renewable energy potential in Ukraine, about the changing environment for renewable investments, and I have pleasure to introduce the panel participants. First, Maria Petrov, who is the deputy head for EBRD Ukraine. And also we have a representative from Ukrgazbank, Rodion Morozov, head of eco projects in the bank. We have here also Willem Coppoolse, I'm sorry if I, okay, from CEO from ENGIE, and Anna Vlasyuk, legal expert from National Investment Council. The keynote speech is provided with Marina, but before I give floor to you, I would like to provide the audience who are still staying with us a couple numbers. For the last 9 months in Ukraine, new renewable capacities installed amounted almost 500 megawatts. For the last 3 years, 1,000 megawatt of new installed capacities, which amounted something around 900 million euros. Out of these, 80-something% comes for solar. The other more significant part comes for wind, and the really minor part would go for other renewable energy sources or technologies. The 7 or 8% of electricity produced via renewables makes up to 15% in the tariff. And this rapid development of renewable investment and rapid increase of renewable costs, which is requiring more balanced approach in the terms of technology, is the environment where we operate. The new strategy of Ukraine on energy, as you probably know, aims to have more than 20% of renewable energy in the balance until 15 years from now. So, Marina, please, as representing the biggest investor in Ukraine, how do you see this situation?
Thank you very much. I just decided that at this time, it will be very difficult to have a big proper presentation. So, I will try just to give you some highlights, because if you are interested in renewable energy in Ukraine, there is a lot of information and people generally know. I would like to correct that the renewable energy that is covered by green tariff is less than 2%. And clearly, 15% is not, the information that at least we get from the energy market. Okay. But let me tell you what was happening in the renewable energy. Fundamentally, it was in 2009 when the authorities decided that they want to start developing renewable energy, because the existing traditional generation is getting outdated, and it is clear that at some stage the old nuclear and coal-fired plants will have to be replaced. So at that time we actively engaged with authorities in structuring a support scheme, and the support scheme was based on what was the theme of the day back 10 years ago, which was feed-in tariff. And clearly, because Ukraine was considered to be a very risky market at the time, the structure was made in such a way that the tariff is guaranteed by the law, which is extremely unusual. In the vast majority of countries, you have regulator approving the tariff. In Ukraine, it goes all the way, the tariff is a law in Ukraine. Ukraine, there is no stronger confirmation of the tariff that could be done than the one that we have in the country. So to kickstart the investments in renewable energy, EBRD also approved what we called, USELF. And again, those of you that are already investing in Ukraine know that this is a program where EBRD originally would provide its own financing, co-financing at subsidized rate by Clean Technology Fund. But what was even much more important, there was a lot of technical assistance to teach Ukrainian developers on how to do renewable energy. Well, this effort led to the fact that we have quite a number of quite advanced Ukrainian developers and Ukrainian investors in renewable energy. And we see more and more people getting interested in this sector. We also now see interest from outsiders in coming to Ukraine. But I'm not going to pitch the high tariff that currently exists. What I am going to pitch to you is the following, that we are discussing with authorities that we are past the original stage of starting the market. So fundamentally, it's time now to start planning for the second stage. And when I'm talking about planning for the second stage, we are talking about whoever is buying existing projects or whoever is buying existing operations should be allowed to continue benefiting from the feed-in tariff until the end of the guaranteed period, which will be 1st of January 2030. But at the same time, what we want Ukrainians to do is to shift to more modern ways of procuring green energy and more sustainable ways of procuring green energy. So we are in very active discussions with the Parliament on a new law that would introduce auctions, first of all for solar and wind projects, hopefully already starting next year. This is still a discussion. The message for investors is, we will do everything we can do to ensure that existing investors will not suffer, that people that, put their trust in the country will get, the tariff that they were promised at the time of investment, that those people that already committed their money now and that already have, long-term power purchase agreements will be allowed, if they decide so, to complete their projects under the feed-in tariff. But then people that are now looking into Ukraine, get ready for the new mechanism. And the reason why we are promoting, the new mechanism is not only because it's modern, it's not only because it will get, cheaper electricity for Ukraine, but it's also that Ukraine has very unusual structure where, irrespective of when you make the investment, the feed-in tariff will stop for all investors at the same day. So the closer we get to the end of 2029, the more difficult it will become for investors to structure projects, because it's very difficult to understand what happens after. And again, those of you that are following the developments of the market would know that there will be a market opening at some stage. So it will be tricky. And that's why we strongly think that auctions are the solution. There was another very important remark about the share of solar and wind. And I have to say, the market is working in Ukraine. The solar tariffs are, because of the quick fall in the cost of technology, the solar tariff is high compared to what you would get in other markets. And the markets reacted the way the markets would also always react. Why bothering with complex biomass if you could have, a quick investment in solar? But we are working with authorities on changing this as well. when the auctions will be introduced, we are really pushing for, auctions to be run on different technology. We are working with agricultural producers in, making an estimate on what is the raw material that could be used, as a waste for agriculture, but a raw material for energy to do bigger transformation. We understand that these projects are more complex, they take longer time to develop, there are bigger technological risks, but this is the new frontier for us. The new frontier for us is auctions and more complex projects such as, larger wind, such as biomass, more biogas, but fundamentally, we do believe that the work that we are doing is helping to build a very sustainable renewable energy sector. We will continue to work closely with the authorities, with the regulator, with the lawmakers in making sure that they are one step ahead of the market, that whatever reforms they're doing are done in advance, that people do have a visibility of the changes in the legal regime. And we are confident that if we succeed in our endeavor, Ukrainian renewable market will continue growing and it will be a sustainable one. And Ukraine will continue to maintain its image that it currently has as a very good place to invest in renewable energy.
Thank you. I would like to approach Rodion on behalf of Ukrgazbank, as you are working, as Marina said, not as competitor, but as a colleague on providing means to investors. Please share your experience as a banker for newcomers to come.
Thanks for introduction. Yeah, it's always good and bad to be in the final panel. Bad because we are all tired. The good, it's like we know that it will be already finishing, and then the wine is already on the table, by the way. So just yeah, I saw it. Yeah, so it's like a Friday feeling. Yes, yeah. So I'll trying to be very brief, and I'll entertain you with some graphic information because it saves me time to speak about figures, which is also a benefit. Brief introduction of a bank. So in 2016, we started this project, EcoBank, we call it. We started, it's like it's green strategy of developing of our bank. And I think that we succeed. As for now, we can say it's definitely, so we are the market leader in the existing situation. For example, in 2018, this year, we financed 2/3 of new capacities which were installed in the Ukraine of renewable energy capacities. Last year it was 1/3, so we are progressing. And of course, we have a very strong partnership with IFC, which helps us actually to develop it, to provide. They provide us with knowledge and with experience that without them we were unable to develop this project successfully. So, well, as a banking guys, we love to talk about figures and to show them. So these are results of 2 years' work. So we actually started from the scratch in 2016. And this is what we have in renewable energy, what we financed. Definitely, it represents the current demand on the market. As you can see, a lot of solar, small projects. So it's not, it's like medium-sized projects, like 5 to 10 megawatts. So it's not the big projects. And but the good thing is that the bank is developed expertise of analyzing projects in all areas of renewables, and we are very grateful to the EBRD and to Marina on their work, because I think that definitely we need the new system of pricing the renewable energy, because otherwise will be in future with the existing system it will be like blowing the bubble, yes, and will definitely somehow explode. So we need the support of stability and sustainability of the system. So I think that we are ready to any kind of transparent pricing system and ready to work on the developing of renewable energy portfolio. And another figure which we are proud of even more, it's written in green, is how many thousand tons of CO2 emission that we help to reduce with our projects, with financing our projects. So it's our little contribution to the environmental effect and to the planet. What makes us so special? Well, briefly saying that we are the only bank in Ukraine which has its own in-house technical office. We have guys who are from completely non-banking industry, who are dedicated engineers who start to work in our technical office, which was set up. And IFC provides us with methodology of analyzing the projects. And now we have even more experience because we already finance like more than 100 projects. So that's why the second advantage is we are able to be fast in decision making because we are motivated to finance more renewable energy, and we know how to analyze it and what to expect. So we are very confident in making decisions whether to go or not to go in financing renewable energy projects. Well, and of course, we are always happy to offer special conditions for green loans and to customize the needs of the client, because we always in the discussion of the clients, we understand what the investors' needs are, and customizing our conditions to their needs to create attractive conditions for their financing. Talking about the market opportunity in general, well, briefly speaking, they are huge. Well, in the previous panel, we finished that we should switch from the gas and from the fossil fuels to renewables, and I completely agree with that. Because, well, for us, the path of switching to renewables, at least in electricity, energy, I think it's a path that it has no alternative. Well, I can say that it's not only because we are Ukrainian people are very keen on environmental effect. Yes, we are, of course, yes, but it's from the practical point of view, because we have very old coal generation. We have problems with gas from supplies from a neighbor, and to be honest, we have something to do in the next 10 years with a nuclear generation, which is the base of the core of our generation system. And it's very old, it's from the Soviet Union, so it has to be some alternative, and opportunity to develop renewable energy are very huge, and the potential is very huge. These are targets that were set up for 2035, which are in the strategy of the developing of energy in Ukraine. So you can see it's like it should be multiplied 10 times. So these opportunities are there. And well, finalizing my brief introduction, I would say that well, there was a question from the audience that about the political insurance. I would say that participation of in the investment projects of the state-owned bank, which is dedicated to finance green energy, it's also like gives extra confidence to the investors, and it's some kind of a political insurance anyway. So because the involvement of state bank, it's definitely a strong argument for protecting these investments and not doing any harmful for it. And we are trying to keep the pace, and we have an appetite for new projects, so we are happy to cooperate. Thank you very much.
I would like to approach Willem, ENGIE, Ukraine. What are your experiences in operating in Ukrainian renewable sector?
Thank you. In renewable sector, we are just about to start, in fact, or not working since very long on renewables. ENGIE, well, for those who don't know, 1 minute introduction. So we are the merger company of Gaz de France and Electrabel. We operate over the world about 100,000 gigawatt of power stations. We are moving very strongly towards renewables. And for example, we sold off our E&P company not that long ago. So we're really very heavily investing, and we will reach in 2 years. I saw the number of 11,000 megawatt of a 2035 target for Ukraine. So ENGIE will reach this number of real renewables, excluding big hydro, in 2021 all over the world. So we're heavily investing in renewables. Ukraine, I fully share, and I remember last year when our CEO came to Kiev, we had a meeting with EBRD, and we completely shared the vision of let's say very high solar, especially solar tariffs, and that there is a big risk, as has happened in other countries and other markets, that high tariffs, high fixed tariffs are reviewed by regulators or by new governments. So which happened in a lot of countries where we operate. So which meant that in fact the introduction or the drafts of the new law on tenders has, for us at least, a bit contradict or a bit strange effect of giving more comfort of investing in Ukraine and looking into renewables, because it will shape the framework for the transition. It was very clear that until this new law, or the draft of the new law and a new system came on the table, the view of our management was very clear. Okay, these tariffs are not sustainable. So if we do a project, it will be reviewed by the next government after 2019. I mean, it's because there is a big windfall in the solar. It's very simple. So we're working on projects now because there is the framework. So I think that the things are really improving, and there is a big bubble, or well, there is a lot of interest. There are good projects. So that's about it. One personal remark, and because we are active in gas in Ukraine since 2.5 years, and we're looking with our engineering companies. For example, they also work with the hydro companies and with the nuclear company. So if you look, as a personal view, if you look at where should the Ukraine invest to become energy independent and improve especially CO2 and environment, it's clear that, well, E&P, the panel just before, they don't ask for subsidies, and they can improve for energy independence. So that's a sector that is not asking for subsidies. Nuclear power stations in Ukraine really need investment. I mean, so that's and they are providing over 50% of the power today in Ukraine. Coal plants are very old, very polluting. They don't respect any of the SOx and NOx standards in Europe today. So privatizing Centernergo, for me, there should be, and we had a look at that 3 years ago, there should be clear also a move toward better norms for these plants, because they need to be renovated or replaced by other stations. So that's a much bigger challenge even than the 11,000 megawatt of target of renewables. And of course, there are the issues about balancing, because there will be big investment needed to balance the renewables, and it's not very clear who's going to pay for it, and that should also be in the law. So just some topics. Thank you.
And here question comes to Anna. As a lawyer, as an expert in legal issues, this changing environment and the environment getting more competitive for renewable investors and renewable electricity is also contexted with the environment of general competitive forces increase in power sector and in energy sector in general. From legal perspective, do you think, or how do you think, the interests of investors may be secured in this, if I may say so, double competitive market arrangement, which is undergoing?
Yes, obviously it's possible, and I think that that should give the biggest security to the investors is properly drafted PPA. And we are now working on developing a new PPA which would be more bankable and more insurable and which would provide an effective dispute resolution clause. So whatever happens to, even if the worst case scenario materializes, the investors would have an effective recourse to the international arbitration or alternative dispute resolution using the negotiations under the auspices of the energy community. So this is one of the avenues that the investors can rely on. And the other guarantees that they can rely on, these are the stabilization clause in the legislation. So as Marina mentioned, Ukrainian law establishes the tariff, but there are also the new law which provides for the reform of the state incentive for the renewables, also provides for stabilization clause for the projects which are at the certain stage of the development. So the projects that have been put into operation by the cutoff date, which is being decided now, it's now work in progress, it hasn't been determined yet. So these projects will enjoy the feed-in tariff at the moment of the executing the PPA.
My question was about more distant future, when the market starts to be fully operational and the maximum tariff is determined by the mechanism of auction. Still, investors need to be sure that they will be able to gain their money back.
Well, if you're speaking about the repatriation of the proceeds, it's already guaranteed in majority of the bilateral investment treaties to which Ukraine is a party, and it's also guaranteed by the Energy Charter Treaty. Ukraine is a state party to the Energy Charter Treaty. So the guarantees are in place. In terms of more practical way to execute it, as you probably have heard today, the capital restrictions in Ukraine are being relaxed. So the National Bank is relaxing the rules for repatriating proceeds of the from the investments to Ukraine.
Thank you. Last week there was an announcement that the security service of Ukraine sees a danger or endangering that renewables is increasing, and this makes the network and the system unreliable, etc., which is for technicians only the question of balancing capacities and forecasting. But however, as Willem mentioned, indeed the question who pays for that is on the table. The new system, which is to be completed by these 7 working groups that are now active for the law drafting. Do you have any opinion, I'm approaching all of you, how this balancing issue should be solved and proposed for Parliament?
Oh, okay.
Well, our view is balancing is a very important issue. We are now discussing launching a study with Ukrgazbank to tackle the myths, because there are lots, there are real issues and there are myths. Mm-hmm. And we really need a good technical study to separate one from another. But if you look at the current size of renewable energy, honestly, 2% is not you know, a volume that will unbalance the system. So we think that you need to separate the issue of price for new renewable energy from the issue of balancing. There are certain provisions in the new electricity market law that gradually renewable energy will have to start assuming, you know, certain responsibility for imbalancing, but, you know, very careful and not before the market is created. The issue of balancing should be addressed separately, and then, you know, it should be the responsibility of the market to start offering this service. We understand that, you know, this is something that will take time, and that, you know, you have to carefully see whether special provisions would need to be put in place during the transition period. But, you know, we are still quite confident that you shouldn't mix the two. You know, these are two separate segments of the market, and if Ukraine is trying to create a proper market, you have to keep them separate. We do believe that, you know, there is a lot of possibility to improve the use of balancing capacity within the existing structure. You know, we will see together with Ukrgazbank whether there are some critical parts that require a quicker investment, and then we will again discuss with the authorities, with the parliament, on whether there are any gaps that will need to be closed in between. But fundamentally, we are not yet at the point when, you know, we should start be terribly worried about, you know, balancing overall. I think, you know, where we should start investing in is better weather forecasts. You know, this is what is a big issue, that, you know, in order for the renewable energy, and especially solar and wind, to be able, you know, to give proper quotes to, you know, to the transmission system operator, they need to have quality weather forecasts. So this is, you know, something that clearly has to be addressed quicker. In terms of balancing, Ukraine will have this issue, but this is an issue that we will have to resolve in the next, you know, 2-3 years. We have time.
I think in existing law there is. Yeah, so in existing law there is a stimulation to invest in forecasting systems. Yes, so because we have now a very soft schedule of fines which will be implemented during the 10 years. Yes, so the industry will have time to think about it and to invest in the forecasting system. And the second part is, well, I think this for balancing that the thing is, right now there is no like private market for balancing powers. So for example, there are people who are invest in solar, and they want to spend more, and they want to install the accumulation systems. They don't know how there is no mechanism to sell this accumulated energy. So I think that it definitely should be a separated industry of accumulation, and then use it for balancing. Yes, so because the technology is developing, the accumulation is getting cheaper, and I think that our government should create the opportunity for the market to develop, because now there is no such opportunity. So if you accumulate the energy, you can use it for yourself. You cannot sell it in the peak times on a higher price, and probably do the financial model that the banks are able to finance. So it's what we need to be done in the nearest future.
Just wanted to say that we have a central dispatching and forecast center for all our European renewable sites. So forecasting is indeed in all European markets the responsibility of the green producer, but balancing is a completely separate business.
Sell the information of forecasting to the Ukrainian in companies. So you can provide us.
We are selling weather products, so
you forecasting.
It could be a market.
Yeah,
well, no.
Well, in fact, certain investment is also needed, as far as I know, to have this product of forecast to be sold, and etc. So it's really a separate market.
You're saying that in the European market models with contracts for difference approach, it is indeed the responsibility of the green producer to make his own forecast. to make good forecasts. So.
Unfortunately, I have already instruction that we need to finish. So I'm not asking for questions from the audience because we have no time, but I ask half minute for you to conclude or to deliver the message that you did not have chance to deliver so far.
Okay. Well, then I just wanted to add what I forgot. So one important point is that saving energy is maybe not as sexy, but it is really important because we're all focusing on making energy, but saving is much more efficient. We're focusing a lot in all countries on incentives for making renewable energy, but saving energy should really have more attention. And one other the thing that is, at least in our company, is getting very hot is biogas. It is more technical, it is more complicated, but and I know Andrei, for example, Naftogaz, they don't like it that much, but there is a big potential in Ukraine for biogas as well.
Okay.
I think, the key message from us is, Ukraine is a country that committed to be compliant with, European regulations and to have an open electricity market. And the idea is, not only technical integration, but also the possibility for players that are present in European markets to easily, converge into being present in Ukraine. This is the process that will take time, but we, the Energy Community Secretariat, EU, there is an entire group of international donors that are working with Ukrainian authorities in making sure that this transition is well guarded, so that people that dare to invest in Ukraine will get, as much protection as possible for their money invested. The country technically has a lot of capacity, but it's aging and it will have to be replaced. That's why Ukraine will need investors in the energy sector. So please, come, have a look. People that come to Ukraine, never leave without making an investment.
So picking up on the issue that Marina mentioned, the transition from the feed-in tariff to the auction procedure. What I would like to stress here is that Ukraine is working on making this transition as smooth and as comfortable for investors as possible. Organizations like National Investment Council, with the support of EBRD, are working with all stakeholders, including other financial institutions and energy developers, to receive their feedback on the design of the auctions, on the introduction day of the auctions, on the components of the auction itself, because it's very important for Ukraine, and there is a political will that to avoid situation like in Spain. So if you're probably aware that the Spain is now a respondent party to 40 investment arbitrations. Ukraine cannot afford this, and
I can make a small comment. We're very proud. We just recently closed a project of 300 megawatts in Spain without any subsidy in wind. So we got rid of the problem. We just did it without subsidy.
So yes, even looking at the other European countries where the investors are doing projects without the subsidies, so the new auctions which will be introduced in Ukraine still will be very attractive. The tariffs that will come out of the auctions will be very attractive. Like in Germany, the recent wind auctions ended up in 0 tariff. So Ukraine is making this transition very gradually and smoothly, and the tariff that is expected as an outcome from the auction still is supposed to be very attractive to the investors.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, just to finalize it, so I think that all things are, we look at, we have very optimistic feeling about the future of renewable, of developing renewables, because the governmental support is proper, so as and the timing of this support is definitely how it needs to be done, because we had to boost the start at the beginning with a simple feed-in tariff system, and now we're moving to transparency, and I would say that's a discussion about this transition. To my mind, it's the first time such a big and open, transparent discussion about the changes in the law, which all the players of the industry, not only key players, but all the players in the industry can be heard on these open discussions. And I think that the future, as I say, we don't have an alternative of developing renewable energy, and I think that we are on the right way. And by the way, because the law hasn't changed yet, it's still a window of opportunity to build your own solar power station right now. So you have like a year or maybe 6-7 months, and we will be happy to refinance it. So take this window of opportunity if you. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Say this very quickly. Looking at blue skies, Ukraine can double and triple its production of agriculture over the next 10-15 years.
Yeah.
The yields are low, so you look at double, triple production. The synergies with renewable energy are amazing. You should be able to, all farms should have free energy. Biomass should double, triple, quadruple. You're looking at solar, wind, and it's beautiful because irrigation, that can be done free. You're looking at greenhouses, done free. Harvesters, tractors, free energy. Fuel cells. You're looking at then the super synergy between renewables and a fabulous, vibrant agricultural sector. Thank you.
I thank you for this note, because this is the answer to the previous panel, whether we can or cannot exchange partially or fully gas for thermal energy generation and supply to houses of Ukrainians. And you are completely right about the potential, which is several times higher than the actual need for energy demand. To conclude, because we really need to finish, Ukraine has huge potential and need for renewables. Ukraine is moving to more competitive, more transparent mechanisms of the sector functioning, and Ukraine is on the way to detach myths from technological issues, which is good and which is future-looking and which will also open up new windows for neighboring markets. Thank you. My special thanks goes to organizers of this event and of this panel, which is gender balanced. Thank you.
Actually, it is gender imbalance.